The GT1 World Championship has reached its halfway stage at Navarra in Spain, and no one has been able to dominate us yet. The season began in Abu Dhabi, and under floodlights on the Yas Marina circuit, the Ford of Max Martin made a poor getaway, allowing Bernoldi to snatch the lead for Nissan. It was a poor start for Belgian racing, but it was about to go wrong for the leading Nissan, almost unnoticed in the brawl that went on down pit lane. Hexis AMR had managed to pull a fast one, and their car, which had been fifth, exited ahead, while the Nissan and Ford both earned extra pit stops. So Livio Piccioni could only wait to see if rookie teammate Stef Dusseldorf would hold on for the win. And when he did, the celebrations began. Round 2 brought the team to Zolder, but a disastrous start for Nissan saw them lose 2 cars before turn 1, as Zonta ricocheted into Campbell Walter, putting them both out immediately. And not long afterwards, Peter Dumbreck attempted a pass at turn 2, which ended up in retirement as well. There was action aplenty, but after their first podium finish in Abu Dhabi, Marc Basseng and Markus Winkelhock were on a roll. Having won the qualifying race, they repeated that performance in the championship race in some style. 2 events and 2 winners. The first ever victory in GT1 for Alinkel.com Munich Motorsport meant that Marc Basseng and Markus Winkelhock became leaders of the championship. Portimao on the Algarve hosted round 3, and now the Nissans began to shine. Richard Westbrook continued on from his qualifying race win to stamp his authority in the early stages. Behind him, the dips and climbs of Portimao appeared to be claiming some victims, but even then there were concerned faces on the pit wall as gearbox oil temperatures on the lead Nissan were going stratospheric. Peter Dumbreck took over at the pit stop, but despite his very best efforts to nurse the car home, the gearbox jammed, allowing teammate Michael Krum to go past. And then finally, the transmission gave up altogether, and Dumbreck was out. A quick stop from Mucker and Turner put their Aston ahead of the Sumo Power Nissan of Babham and Campbell Walter, but nothing could deny the German driver pairing of Krum and Law from taking their first win together. The number 23 car has one of the strongest driver pairings in the field. The 40-year-old Krum and the 31-year-old Lure are good mates as well. Next up was the sinuous Sachsenring. Max Martin started the Ford from pole, but a first corner shunt accounted for him and delayed the Hexis Aston of Stef Dusseldorf, while Thomas Enger got hit on the opening lap as well, ending any chance that he may have had. Off too went the Al Inkel Lambo with an errant wheel. And a puncture for Livio Piccioni later in the race didn't help matters for that Hexis Aston Martin. The Nissans were never at their best at the Sachsenring, but Christian Hohenadel and Andrea Piccini took a well-earned victory for Hexis Aston Martin. Last year, Hexis AMR finished runners-up in the team's championship. This year, the small but brilliantly organised French outfit has been incredible in the pits and tough on the track. The first half of the season came to its conclusion at Silverstone last time out. Qualifying race winner Thomas Enger led the field away in his Aston Martin, but never fully escaped the attentions of Michael Krum's Nissan. Further back, Westbrook was attempting to make up places after his car had been shunted in the qualifying race, when contact was made with the Aston of Stefan Mucker. The German was unimpressed, but in attempting to intimidate Westbrook, he got it all wrong and ended up smashing the DBR9 into the barriers and further damaging Richard Westbrook's car. The resultant safety car period also allowed Krum's Nissan to be right on Enger's tail as the stops were made, and the JR Motorsport crew managed to beat young driver in turning the cars around, allowing Lucas Law to take the lead. Now in the Aston, Alex Muller refused to give up the fight, and he threw everything into his attempts. He nosed ahead briefly, but never able to stay in front. So Lucas Law and Michael Krum won the Tourist Trophy. From Silverstone to Spain, and a return visit to the twisting Navarra circuit near Pamplona. Aston Martin driver pairings currently sit 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th in the championship. The Hexis team won at Abu Dhabi with one car and Sachsenring with the other. And while their pit stops are still fantastic, the others are catching up. The young driver team has yet to deliver a win. Enger and Muller came close at Silverstone, but the other car may have a tough weekend due to a 10-place grid penalty following Mucker's accident.
Silverstone for sure was not really a good weekend for us. I did a very big mistake for sure. I just can apologize for that. I had no intention to hit the Nissan on the straight line. It was unfortunately one of these days where just many things come together, but now we are looking forward to the Navarra race, very hot out here, and let's see how we can manage this here.
Corvette's 2 entries offer a contrast in youth versus experience. The DKR engineering car features 2 ambitious Frenchmen, with Michael Rossi having been joined for the 2nd time by Dimitri Engelbert, a GT3 race winner in a Morgan a few years ago. Meanwhile, the ex-Inbank Team China car started from pole last time out and challenged for the win with Lure and Muller. Nico Verdonk joins Mike Hazelmans this weekend, and for some, Mike is a potential dark horse for the title.
At the moment I'm changing more co-drivers than tires. So of course I cannot do it alone, but the last race was very good. The last 2 races actually pole. The car is getting better, it's really balanced now. But so I don't know, I think the tracks which are coming up are not bad for us.
Ford's GT should feel more at home here in Navarra, where it can use the nimbleness and traction that was so fast at Sachsenring. But both teams need to avoid errors. Belgian Racing have a more consistent lineup now, and Nygaard and Ix were on for a potential 4th place at Silverstone until penalised for an early stop. At Mark VDS, Bas Leinders will hope to build on the 5th place he enjoyed here at Navarra last year, while the other car sees a newcomer in the shape of Indy 500 racer Bertrand Baguette.
Well, it's a completely different world, you know. In the IndyCar you see a lot of things. Here in a GT car you have a roof and you have a lot of things around you, so the vision is not so nice, but it's cool. The car walls a lot, it's quick, it's a heavy car, and I like it.
Lamborghini's logo is the Raging Bull, and with the home of the Bull Run, Pamplona, just down the road, it's only right that the Murcielago suits this place so well. Schwager and Pastorelli are in one car, and championship contenders Winkelhock and Basseng are in the other.
I hope so that this track suits to our car. We have to get our own points here this weekend if we still be one of the contenders for the championship.
Nissan's GTR proved to have the necessary speed to win at Silverstone, and the JR Motorsport pairing of Krum and Law is the only outfit to have won on more than one occasion this year. Westbrook and Dumbreck have been out of luck at the last couple of events. At Sumo Power, Enrique Benoldi has his 3rd different co-driver in 4 races in the shape of former Corvette racer Nicky Katzberg.
It's a bit difficult because I'm sitting on the other side of the car and I'm shifting with my left hand. It's been quite good. I just done my first laps in the car. I'm really happy to be in this team with a lot of good drivers, so I just have to listen and learn. I hope we will be in the front this weekend.
The cars are lining up on the grid in preparation for the qualifying race here at Navarra. A very warm welcome, hot welcome indeed, from this northwestern part of Spain. I'm Ben Edwards with John Watson, Hayley Coxon, who will be down on the grid, getting reaction from the drivers as we prepare for the all-important qualifying race, which of course does earn a few points and certainly sets the cars up for the championship race. John, the Navarra circuit demands quite a lot from the tyres, particularly in the temperatures we're seeing.
It's a shortish circuit, very tight, 15 turns, 800-metre front straight, but it will ultimately be the driver who looks after his rear tyre will be the driver who will stand on the winner's podium.
Pole position for this race has been taken by contenders Marcus Winkelhock and Marc Basseng, and Hayley caught up with Marc Basseng just a few moments ago.
Performance you've been getting out of the Lamborghini here at Navarra, are you feeling confident going into the qualifying race?
Yeah, I really feel really comfortable because I have my teammate on my side, so I'm sure nothing will happen in the first corner. The car is good, we have a lot of torque. I hope the start will be okay so that we going into the first corner as 1 and 2.
Thank you.
We had a quick word with Mark, didn't we, John, earlier on, and heat is definitely still a bit of a worrying issue here.
It's been a problem not just in GT1 but in GT3 as well. It's a question of how high you can afford to let your engines run, and of course the amount of air that you can pass through the radiator and how you get that hot air out. So engine temperatures, transmission temperatures also an issue, as well as just simply the tyres yelling enough before they come to the end of their respective stints.
So just looking at the Hex's Aston Martin there, lining up on the grid of Steph Dusseldorp. Car he shares with Clivia Piccioni. That starts on the 3rd row of the grid. But as we look just slightly further up, we've got the championship leading car. There it is, number 23, Michael Krum and Lucas Lohr. It's Michael Krum to start the race on this one. He's got the Corvette next door, Nico Verdonk, new to the Corvette, but very rapid in qualifying this morning. Did a good job, of course, sharing that car with Mike Hazelman. Yeah,
and I'm going to keep an eye on that Corvette. It's on the 2nd row of the grid. We know it's got good speed, good torque, and it's a slightly uphill climb up to turn 1, which is a little more than a curve, but immediately you're through that, you're hard on the brakes for turns 2, and then there's the even slower turn 3. So please let this field of cars make the start, get through the first lap, and can we have all the cars that make the start complete the first lap? Not a lot to ask, guys. It'd be great for us here in the commentary booth if you did.
Yeah, that would be nice. So cars move away on the formation lap then, and just to remind you, it is the 2 Lamborghinis that control the front row. Interestingly enough, though, the number 37 car, 2nd on the grid, when it comes to the race tomorrow, has a 5-place penalty for an extra engine use in this year's championship. So, but it doesn't apply today. It only applies in the championship race. There are some penalties that do apply for this one, though. Let's just run through that grid. The two Al Inkel cars in the front row, with Marc Basseng starting and Nicky Pastorelli starting in his car. On the second row, then, you've got Michael Krum in the Nissan and Nico Verdon. He actually starts in third place. Fifth is Steph Dusseldorf. Sixth is Max Martin, and the first of the Ford GTs on the grid. Seventh for Andrea Piccini. Eighth for Nicky Katzberg, making his debut for Nissan, having been so fast for Corvette. Westbrook is ninth on the grid. Brabham is 10th, both of course in the Nissan GTR. That's Brabham has had a 5-place penalty, that's why he's back there. Henrici and Muller are together on row 6. Then Vanina X and Antoine Leclerc, the two teammates at Belgian Racing with their Fords. Towards the back, the Corvette of Michael Rossi. There is Stefan Mucker. He starts right at the back, of course. He's taken a 10-place penalty, but very interesting tactics from car number 8 this morning, John. They didn't even bother with qualifying effectively. They went out at the very first round.
Well, we called it that way. They didn't actually confirm that. They really couldn't, because it would be outside of, I think, the spirit of the event. But they cited technical reasons. But what they've done is saved up lots and lots of sets of tyres, which will be as fresh, if not brand new. And that may well play into the strength of Darren Turner and Stefan Mucker, who really has got to look after his own race this year or this weekend. Keep out of trouble, because he was in heaps of trouble at Silverstone a month ago.
Well, there we are on board the Corvette. That's got a good starting position once again. It's been competitive in quite a few of the recent races. Just looking at the qualifying race wins we've had so far this year, Ford have had 2 qualifying race wins this year, but they've yet to win a championship race. Lamborghini's had 1 qualifying race win, Nissan have had 1, and so have Aston Martin. You've got to say that Lamborghini are best placed in this one with 2 cars on that front row, but don't discount the Nissans. And how these cars look after their tyres will be crucial.
Yes, and in particular with the Lamborghini, the way the engine gearbox configuration is, there's a substantial amount of rear wheel weight, and that should hopefully give them that little bit of additional traction, but also help them look after those rear tyres. Certainly better than some of the other cars in the field, and Nissan and Aston Martin, the front engine cars, even the Corvette, where the engine is somewhat on the front, more like in a mid configuration.
So you'll see the safety car peel off in just a second here as it comes into the pits, and then they have to finish off the last part of the lap, and then of course we'll get hopefully the start called. So let's hope they can keep a good formation. Certainly the 2 Lamborghinis just beginning to put a little bit of power down here, and I do hope that they've got a good understanding between each other as to what they're going to do heading down into the first corner.
Key will be who got pickup on their tyres in this formation lap.
Heading down towards the lights then as we prepare for the qualifying race here at Navarra. We go green, and the 2 Lamborghinis go into launch mode as they head down towards turn 1. It's a good start on the outside and 4-5 abreast further back in the back, and it looks to me as though it's Nicky Pastorelli who sweeps into the lead from the outside of the front row. The pole sitter Marc Basseng has to settle for second, and already progress from the back and spinner. Belgian Ford in the middle of the pack, and just avoided by Stefan Mucker.
I think he might have got clipped on turn 3. 4 cars off track on the exit of turn 3. Please, guys, I wish you didn't respect.
Oh, yeah, there could be damage to 1 or 2 of those cars. You're on board with Michael Krum, and he's dropping well back here, John.
Well, he may have been one of those 4 cars that went off on the exit of 3. I suspect he's been clipped, and he may well have a tyre deflation or damage to the rear of the car.
Oh, that's disaster for the championship leader. Not what he wanted at all. Michael Krum dropping right back in the pack there. It's the number 37 car, Nicky Pastorelli, that leads, but the Corvette on a charge, and further back the DKR Corvette, also the black car, trying to make up some places. But up front, near the front, Nico Verdonk in the red Corvette, hounding the Lamborghinis.
Well, he looked like he was coming strongly off turn 8. He was quicker off than the Lamborghinis. At the back of the field, we've got cars. There were 1.4 cars wide coming down the back straight behind the Corvette. It's had a great start, being a major beneficiary with all the messing around in turns 2 and 3.
Alex Muller there in the Aston Martin, battling with Westbrook by the looks of things. They were side by side. The Mark VDS Fords both seem to have got a reasonably good start, but Westbrook in car number 22, they're trying to, he's not really had a great first lap, so he's trying to re-establish himself. 2 Fords come through, the Hexus Aston Martin. That DKR Corvette has made up a load of places.
It was the real beneficiary. What took place in turns 2 and 3, particularly in the corner, turn 3, he just sailed through up the inside. Everybody was off the track on the outside, and that's how he managed to find himself all the way up into, let's look and see where he is.
Here comes Westbrook. Westbrook down the inside of the Aston Martin and retakes Alex Muller. That is for 10th place. So Westbrook's got himself into 10th.
The Corvette's gone from 15th to 8th. What a great start.
That's incredible. That's Michael Rossi, the young Frenchman. So great effort from him. But you saw Westbrook getting past the Aston. And interestingly, Stefan Mucker in the orange and white, the white with the orange or red coloured stripes on it. That has now caught up to the back of the other Aston, which was so much further up on the grid. So perhaps starting at the back did work. Let's see what happened at that start.
Well, everybody clean off the grid. Then the cars fan out 3, 4, almost 5 wide, coming down the main straight into turn 1. And this is where it all started to go pear-shaped. We're familiar with that. Into turn 2, there was contact at the tail of the field. There's the Ford going round. I don't know whether Stefan Mucker, he certainly did get clipped. But there was the exit of turn 3, where it really went absolutely pear-shaped. 3. That's the contact with the Ford from the Aston.
And
but
look what
on the outside,
was.
look at the Corvette, but it suddenly finds here's on the one hand 3 cars off, then 2, one of the Fords and Nissan, one of those is Krum, and that also the Enge Aston Martin as well.
Yeah, you're right. Krum had contact with a Ford, certainly the latter part of the corner, but whether that was what caused his problem, we'll no doubt find out later. Leading this race then, it's Nicky Pastorelli in the number 37 Alinkel car, chased by his team manager, Marc Basseng, in the second of those two, and major championship contender. But of course, remember tomorrow, the 37 car leading has got a 5-place penalty drop on the grid. So even if it wins here, it will lose places on the grid for tomorrow. The Corvette in third, the Hexus Aston Martin in 4th place of Dusseldorf, and then behind him is Henrici in car number 40, and then it is Max Martin in the number 41 car. So Henrici had a good first lap there, and he'll be pleased with that. There's Claudio Piccioni. His car's currently in 4th place, the first of the Astons. You can see it there with lights ablaze. That's his car ahead of the 2 Fords, but the Fords could be dangerous as this race progresses, because they should look after their tyres well.
Yeah, so they're going to their race will come to them much further into the 1 hour or 55 minutes that we have of this race remaining. There's a gap between 2nd or 3rd and 4th. The Aston Martin not quite able to keep up the pace of the first 3 cars. That's allowing these 2 Ford GTs to run down the Aston Martin. It will be not a matter of if but when that 1 or 2 of those Fords find a way through.
Max Martin, he's driven already today in a race. He was in the GT3 race earlier and went off in his Aston Martin. He'll be keen not to repeat that performance, chasing teammate Mark Henrici. And Max here's got a new co-driver this weekend in Bertrand Baguette. Just listen up, watch as he goes to work here. Tight and twisty, you get an idea of what this Navarra circuit is like. No rest, is there?
No, into turn 13, another very low-speed corner. In fact, on the 4 GTs, they're going all the way down the gearbox to first gear, about 4 times on a lap. Other cars only having to use second gear.
Headlight shot on the 2nd place Lamborghini. So we're looking straight from the front of the car there at the teammate, moving out of the slipstream.
That's to let air into the radiators. The problem is everybody's marginal on cooling. So if you're running directly under the car ahead of you, you're not getting the maximum amount of airflow through the radiators. So they must do that to keep the car temperature somewhat in control.
Yeah, that's right. So Henrici still ahead of Max Martin. The battle of the Fords, and there was a mistake. Yeah, up front there could be a change. Nicky Pastorelli, I think, has just held on to it, but under pressure from his teammate Marc Basseng.
He made a mistake in turn 3, ran slightly wide, got onto the rubber on the outside of the track. That's allowed once again the Lamborghini to draw together, but principally to put the Corvette even more into the equation. And the Lamborghini now has to be very careful that Nico van Donk doesn't slot the Corvette, which he's quite capable of doing. You know, fundamentally a single-seater driver driving a GT car. He only knows one way to go forward.
Yeah, he won the kart race yesterday too. They had a fun karting event just across from the track here, and Nico Verdonk, the Corvette driver, won that. Could he be on for double victory? Somebody kicking up the dust in the background, and actually all the leaders are closing back up because of that mistake.
Indeed, well, you go slightly wide, slightly offline, and there is a lot of rubber offline. We saw it earlier. Some of the shots there, we have a look again and see what happened. Oh, that's fell around the racetrack, so it's a function. It's the function of what happened to the lead car. Just about managed to get itself back into the lead, but it's drawn these 3 lead cars. In fact, it's taken now 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. There's a big gap between 7th and 8th place. That's Rossi in the Corvette in 8th. So it's going to be a 7-car battle up until we get to the first round of pit stops.
Yeah, this is going to keep it very tight indeed. Wonderful, and there was a little brake locked up, I think, from the leader.
Yes, Nicky Pastorelli just locked the brakes. So again, we're having seen Marc Basseng having to pull out, get in to the fresh air. He can't take any benefit from the slipstream from his teammate's car.
Yeah, same thing for Max Martin in the background. He was doing the same behind his teammate, or rather not behind his teammate, to get the clear air. There's Marcus Winkelhock due to take over from Marc Basseng, man who earned the pole position in the end, his first ever pole in GT1. Ex-DTM racer, ex-Formula 1 driver, famously, very, very briefly, led a Grand Prix, but he's really enjoying his time in GT1 now. So let's ride with the Corvette. Listen to the motor. Doesn't get a lot of chance to stretch its legs, though, not on this section.
No, but again, it's a very well-balanced car, and he put a sort of young Nico van Dijk into the car. He will push the lower. He looks down the inside, but it was a slight mistake. He almost overran into the corner. The pace of the two Lamborghinis in turn 8 coming onto the pit straight, not as quick as the Corvette had the capacity to enter the corner. He's looking again down, can't get close enough to go down the inside into turn 9. It's keeping these two Lamborghinis very, very honest.
Yeah, I mean, I wondered if the Lamborghinis would run and hide in this race, John, but it's not happening.
No, they're not. I think they're having to run at a pace. They've got issues they've got to control, temperature being one of those issues, so they can only really allow themselves to run to a certain, let's say, RPM. The higher the RPM they pull, the more heat the engine generates, and they can't dissipate that heat.
Yeah, and this isn't really what they wanted. They would love to have had a little bit of a gap to then look after the cars, but it's not happening for them. They're being hounded by Corvette, by Aston, and by two Fords, and one of the Fords up the inside, Max Martin, makes the move on teammate Marc Henrici, and it was well seen by Henrici, who gave him just enough space. He's trying to come back at him, and Max Martin says, right, I'm going to go to the inside if you're going to try that one.
Well, the compromise was Martin compromised his exit, so he didn't have the speed off, so Henrici looking to come back at the Belgian driver, now just ahead of his teammate. But again, the Corvette hounding these two Lamborghinis, and they're going to struggle. The temperature issue is a real issue. Corvette seem to have it covered better than Lamborghini have, coming through turn 5 up into turn 6.
Yeah, that, as you say, Nico Verdonk is looking one way or the other. He's not really challenging yet, but the car looks stable. He seems to be able to change line easily. He's not using all the road everywhere.
But he's capable. He can certainly enter corners at a higher speed than we're seeing the Lamborghinis do. He runs them down. In fact, what he needs not to do is run so close to the back of the Lamborghini. Just keep a little bit of margin, but get on the throttle as we look at Henrici now trying to get back at Maxime Martin. So these two Ford BDS drivers battling amongst themselves, and they need to be careful that they don't take each other or put each other into a more vulnerable position.
Let's see what else is happening. Michael Rossi in the black Corvette is holding on to 8th. Hatzberg is 9th on his debut for Nissan. A little bit of a lock-up behind. Westbrook is currently in 10th place. Stefan Mucker is in 11th. David Bradham in 12th. Alex Muller 13th in his Aston Martin. Leclerc is running 14th. X 15th. And Michael Krum, he had that problem on the first lap, if you remember. He is still running, but he is running plumb last. So the championship leader is running last in this race, which is being, well, second place at the moment is his big rival. So this is not good news, but remember, this is the qualifying race. The main race comes tomorrow.
The problem Michael Krum has got is that he's lapping basically over a second slower than the lead car, so maybe there was damage to that Nissan we didn't get a clear view of. So things beginning to settle down a little bit as he comes up just under the 50 minutes remaining, and both Lamborghinis are sort of consolidating. They've got the Corvette in control, running in 4th place. Steph Dusseldorf not really threatening the Corvette, so everybody's that moment of great tension about 4 laps ago when we nearly saw a lead change up at turn 3. Things are settling down. Drivers are thinking more about driving their stint than maybe the next corner.
Yeah, all seeing what they can do here, how the car feels. Remember, you can follow the live timing and scoring at GT1world.com, and lots of behind-the-scenes footage there at GT1 TV as well, where you can catch up with what's been happening this weekend. But on board with Max Martin, the number 41 Ford, and he's really beginning to hound Steph Dusseldorf in the Aston Martin ahead of him. Oh, and another possible change up front between the two leaders. Oh my goodness, the two teammates. This is getting very tight indeed. Basseng wants to get through, but Nicky Pastorelli's not going to make it easy for him. And meanwhile, yep, no change there. I think Martin stays ahead of Henrici.
I suspect that Marc Basseng thinks that he can run quicker than Pastorelli can do. Therefore, he wants to put the 38 Lamborghini ahead of the 37. But he's not getting any cooperation from Nicky Pastorelli. Here we get a look and see coming down at the end of into turn 9. That's the back straight, and there was very, very marginal contact between the two cars. The danger is course, the front splitter on the Lamborghini is very low indeed. All it needs to do is just come in contact with the rear tyre, and that will be the lead car pretty much over for the afternoon.
Well, you could hear the lock-up then, couldn't you, when we heard the replay, and so that was pretty marginal, but they got away with it. But it has put him back into the clutches of the Corvette, which Basseng doesn't really need. Nico Verdonk will take any opportunity to slip past, and this is it's a bit like a kart race at this point. I thought that these would spread out, but it hasn't happened at all, and the two Lamborghinis are not having it all their own way. Fastest lap has gone to Marc Basseng so far. He sits in second ahead of this Corvette. Behind the Corvette still the Aston of Dusseldorf, then the two Fords, followed by Piccini in his Hex's Aston Martin, and then Rossi still holding on to an excellent 8th place.
I think the Corvette is getting very anxious. There's a smaller gap opening up, but I think that's just quite simply that Marc Basseng has got to keep an eye on that temperature gauge, to keep banging on about it, but I know that it is an issue with these extreme temperatures.
Interesting discussion between the drivers of those two Lamborghinis, the teammates. Oh, and this is a move by Max Martin up the inside of the Aston. Nearly gets there. Good racing, well done. They gave each other just enough space, but he didn't get through.
No, he tried on the inside, but he's going to try again into turn 10. Can he get it done? Gets up the inside. Yes, he's got it done this time. And that's what I want to see. Close motor racing, but I don't want to see dodging cars.
No, and that was cleanly done and sort of done over 2 corners. And in fact, Dusseldorf's going to have to watch out because the other Ford is now bearing down on him as well. That was lovely racing. That's what these top-class GT drivers are perfectly capable of. We've got some of the best drivers in the world here in GT cars, and that was putting on a proper show of how you go about racing, and that was extremely well done by Max Martin, who seems to enjoy this track. Let's take another look at this. This was the onboard view.
This is coming onto the main straight, or the back straight, I should say. The Aston goes defensive to the right-hand side of the track. The Ford stays on the left. That's the racing line. Then cuts back again, but isn't quite able to step to Dusseldorf. He gives enough room for Maxime Martin to get through the corner without contact. That's what a racing driver should do. But then he gets caught unawares into turn 10. The Ford better and later on the brakes into that tight left-hand corner. And once he's in position, then the Aston's got to concede.
Yeah, and that was lovely. Great move, and so he's done that. And in fact, I think no, that's the other Aston. That's the
Piccini.
Andrea Piccini car. So he's on the back of that group. You've got the two teams racing against one another. Mark VDS with their silver, maroon, and yellow Fords, and the two Hex's Aston Martins, similar colours without the yellow. But they're all racing against one another, but very different shapes, of course.
And just to add insult to injury, poor Benina Eakes has been given a drive-through penalty for cutting white line at pit exit.
Yeah, she made a pit stop for a technical problem, and now she's been done for a drive-through.
She made the mistake of going over the white line on the pit lane exit, and she's going to have to take a drive-through penalty just to compound her problem.
That's a great shame. It is a slightly different pit lane exit here, isn't it? We were talking about that earlier on today. It comes out into a kink, so it is a slightly unusual one. But look at the two leaders. They have now, at last, from their point of view, made a little bit of a break. But Basseng still hasn't found a way past his teammate, Nicky Pastorelli.
No, he's not going to make it either, and as we say, a mistake from Nicky Pastorelli, and it was a mistake that Pastorelli made much earlier in this race. He ran wide in turn 3, and that looked like Marc Basseng was going to get a move on him, and then that contact down at the end of the back straight into turn 9. But again, Pastorelli was able to keep that control of the race. So everybody now just sort of thinking about, well, 44 minutes remaining, 10 minutes time, the pit lane will open for the mandatory stop, driver change, tyre change, whatever. So they're thinking more now about how are we going to get through without having collision, without having issues, and handing over to our teammates.
Yeah, but watch Max Martin here, because, you know, he's been able to get past the Aston. He got past his teammate earlier on, and now he is hounding. Yeah, look at the lap times, how he is caught up. He is hounding the back of the Corvette. So suddenly, from being attacker, Nico Verdonk has now turned into defender, and that Ford is getting even closer.
Turn 8, watch for a pass on the inside from the Ford. Well, we don't know whether it's been... No, he didn't. He certainly was shaping up to put the Ford down the inside. Now under the rear wing of the Corvette. I don't know whether the Ford's got the horsepower. The Corvette's gone to the right again to defend. Maxime Martin made the pass, not here on the Aston Martin a lap ago, but it was into turn 10. He's going to maybe try and do the same thing to the Corvette. Maybe Nico Verdonk will be a little bit wiser. He is. He places his car right in the bit of racetrack that Maxime Martin was looking for.
Yeah, and that was quite canny, because it also sort of messed up Martin's rhythm just there. Now he's got a great run going here, but is there anywhere he can make use of it?
Not into turn 13, certainly not on the outside of the corner. So he gets through turn 13. Everybody slows down to the speed. Pit lane is to the right-hand side of this picture. Then the quick turn 13, 14 it is now. up into turn 15, the final corner. Again, do your work, prepare, make sure you get the line you want, get on the throttle, and don't let the back end of the car dance outwards.
Yeah, but the traction off the corner actually looks fairly even between both Corvette, and that Corvette certainly got the legs down the straight. We know that is always the issue for Ford. It's a very good handling chassis, but in balance and performance terms, it has a little bit less hold, a little bit less power, a little bit less torque off the slow corners. That's where they really feel they struggle. But of course, under braking and turning into corners, that's where they're fast.
Well, right now, Maxime Martin is absolutely on a mission, and he's got Corvette written all over the windscreen of that Ford GT, and he doesn't like it.
No, that's right. He wants to get through. Corvette taking a fairly wide line. I wondered if he might have a think there, but it's not really a chance.
Chance will come up into turn 8. Again, Verdonk very canny about how he uses his car, where he puts it. No chance in this particular occasion. Maxime Martin feeling that the Corvette is too competitive. But again, you can see just the way the Corvette can marginally pull away. So frustrating for Maxime Martin, but down the inside.
He's down the inside, he's done it. What a lovely bit of outbraking that was.
But the Corvette's come back, he overran the corner. But can he maintain? But no, he can't.
Oh, I wondered if he was going to hold that and then have the inside line here, which is what he did earlier. But that's great racing between these two. And again, they're giving each other just enough room. Quality stuff as the two leaders continue round to pull away from these two. Still Nico Verdonk and the Corvette, Max Martin, the Belgian, on board the Mark VDS Ford here. And then now, what's he going to do here?
Well, not into turn 14, nowhere to go. You're just going to follow your leader. Think about it into turn 15, but do the right thing, go to the left. Defence from Verdonk on the inside of the corner. Now, pick up the throttle. But again, it's the problem. The momentum is lost as you come to the exit of the corner. And again, the Corvette has got that little bit of advantage in a straight line to pull away. Pulls over to the right to prevent anybody. Martin going down the inside. We're back to turn 1, the flat-out flick. And then it's on the brakes for 2 and 3.
Just a quick pointer, not terribly exciting, but further down the order. I noticed a lap or so ago that David Braverman moved up to 11th ahead of Stefan Mucker. Westbrook, by the way, is still in 9th position, but Michael Krum is still, well, he's not last because of Nina X's pit stop, but he's last but one. Championship leader Michael Krum, so things not going according to plan at all after a bit of an incident at the first couple of corners, which was hard to spot. Here comes Max Martin in the Ford again.
Just can't maintain the position on the acceleration out of 6 through 7 and into 8. We saw GT3 cars making a relatively easy pass. Again, under the rear wing of the Corvette, it's going to go to the right. Ford stays on the left. Watch for the switchback. Watch for the dive down the inside. No, he decides not this time, not near enough to take the risk.
And he has to follow through now. What about this next left-hander? This is where we saw him make a move earlier. No, he knows he can't do it.
Verdonk is good in the brakes, he's late in the brakes, but he keeps the car in position, making it extremely difficult for Maxime Martin to put that Ford GT into the position to compromise the Corvette.
Great on-board shots these, because you're making the thought processes with the driver. He knows he's got the advantage, but he also knows to make a good move, it's got to be without hesitation, and it's got to be focused and committed, and he just knows as yet he hasn't quite got into the position to be able to do that.
He made that one attempt down the back straight into turn 9, but just simply overran, couldn't get the car slowed down, and Nico Verdonk cutely pulled back behind the Ford, was able to get on the throttle and consolidate that third position.
So this is where the action is up front. The two leaders separated by 0.6 of a second, but they've opened up 4 seconds now over these two. So in the early stages it was very, very close between the leaders, but all of this has slowed the pair down, and they're seeing the lead being stretched away as the pit stop opening time is about 4 minutes away. So we are going to be seeing plenty of action in pit lane soon.
Up the inside, got it done. Can he keep it in control? He's got it. Great opportunistic pass, unexpected, but the Corvette's round the outside.
But he's got the inside for the next right-hander. He's there on the inside. Surely the Corvette can't come back from there. But then the Corvette's great off the corner. He's trying to get across, and he just does it. That's his move. The Corvette's going to have to go to the outside. No room. And finally, Max Martin has completed the manoeuvre.
Well, caught everybody unexpectedly into turn 6. The danger was he overran the corner, and the Corvette swapped back underneath the Ford, got alongside. Unfortunately, he was on the outside for the 2 right-hand corners, and Martin was able to control that position. And now we're looking back, Henrici, he's seen what his partner can do. He fancies a bit of the same. So it's going to be further torture for Nico Verdonk in the Corvette, with Mark Henrici in the second of the 4 GTs. Here we look again. See how close it was. In fact, the Corvette was out about half a car, in fact, a full car length ahead as they came up into turn 8. But the Ford was on the inside, had the control of the corner, and once that was executed, then really diving down the inside, a replay again of what Martin did. Verdonk, I suspect, didn't expect that challenge, but he was smart enough to get back and get ahead. At this point, he was a full car length ahead of the Ford.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Max Martin seems to like this track. He shared the car with Bas Leiners last year, and they had a 3rd place finish in the qualifying race and a 5th place in the main race. So obviously this place does suit him. But there are the 2 leaders. Pastorelli still leading from teammate Marc Basseng, with the clock ticking away towards pit stop opening time. The gap between them just 0.6 of a second. Just enough maybe to look after temperatures, but only just, I would think, in the 2nd placed car, and their advantage over the rest has opened up to 5.5 seconds now.
Yeah, and that allows both these cars to back off, take a few hundred RPM out of their rev to ensure that the temperature issues, which I'm aware of, and we're all aware that Lamborghini was marginal, and all of a sudden in the space of those 5, 6, 8 laps they've put themselves into a very comfortable position indeed, and all the focus has been on the Corvette Ford battle.
2 Nissans going side by side as they come down. That's the 2 Sumo Power cars, still the same. Katzberg in front of Brabham, but Brabham trying to get him as they come around. And now Max Martin, oh no, it's Henrici trying to get past the Corvette as well. Henrici trying, as you say, repeat what Max Martin did earlier.
But watch the Aston behind, because it's suddenly come back up into this battle for Stef Dusseldorf, who really had dropped back and hadn't been a player. Now he's suddenly feeling, well, I want a bit more action. I had my quiet Saturday afternoon drive. I want to go motor racing.
Yeah, and there is Stef in the number 3 car, chased by his teammate Andrea Piccini. He's running in 7th place. Then you've got that gap back to Michael Rossi, who's still doing a good job in the Corvette, holding over to 8th, and he's staying ahead of a train of potentially rapid cars. He's got Richard Westbrook behind him as Rossi, but he's managing to hold on to that place, and he'll be well pleased with that. And Westbrook just can't seem to make a move as those 2 Aston Martins come through turns 2 and 3. Up front, the gaps, the gap between the leaders and the 3rd place car narrowed a bit on that lap.
Well, the gap between 3rd and the lead 2 cars is actually beginning to run down again. Now that Martin Martin has got clear of the Corvette, he's pulled clear air in the space of 2 laps from the Corvette, and is in fact in the position to challenge the Lamborghinis, if not on lap time. Certainly he will do very shortly, lapping a second a lap quicker on the last lap than the lead 2 cars.
Yeah, so the Fords are flying here. We thought the track should suit them. Saxon Ring was great for them as well, but now Mark Henrici's the one who's got to try and get past this red Corvette, and so far he hasn't been able to follow through as Max Martin did, but it took Martin quite a few laps to sort it out. And there's Verdonk going very defensive. It's going to compromise his exit speed. But again, the Corvette is so good on power out of the corner.
And again, this part of the racetrack through turns 11 and 12, there's so little space to really get any advantage over another car. And in fact, it's very easy for Verdonk to slow the whole group down, back them all up, then get on the throttle and see, well, I thought he was going to make the pit stop, but we haven't quite yet got the pit lane open. It will be open.
Now, I wonder if anyone's going to leap straight into the pits from the group that's running further down towards the back. Max Martin, another rapid lap from him. He's brought down another second, John, on that last lap.
Yeah, it was 4.5, now it's 3.7 seconds, and he is clearly the quickest car on the racetrack by a full second. And we'll wait and see what happens when the pit stop window. If he can draw that Ford GT to the tail of the Lamborghinis at the point.
Mistake from
Henrici indeed.
And he's nearly lost the place, not quite to Stef Dusseldorf, but Dusseldorf couldn't take advantage. Oh, again he's wide over the curb, and he's going to have to be very cautious here, otherwise they'll nip up the inside of him.
Well, when you lose your rhythm, as there was the case there with Henrici, it just all began to look like, oh, what am I going to do? I've got to focus again and stop making these minute driving errors. This is going to cost me at least one place.
So a bit of optimism there on board Stef Dusseldorf, who thought there might be an opportunity to nip past the Ford. It hasn't yet happened, but it's still very, very close in this group, isn't it? Corvette holding on to 4th place, 5th the Ford, then the 2 Astons, 6th and 7th. There's Rossi ahead of Westbrook, and then you've still got the 2 Sumo Power cars of Katzberg and Brabham. Nothing to choose between them at all. Stefan Mucker still running in 12th place, Alex Muller in 13th, and poor old Michael Krum all the way down in 14th. We seem to have lost.
Second place, Bassing, first of the lead cars to make a pit stop.
Yep.
We've seen Eats come in and we've seen Leclerc come in, but the focus at the front now, and we also see the Corvette comes into the pits. So Corvette, Ford GT and Aston Martin. So we're seeing 4th, 5th and 6th as further down the field, Westbrook, or is it, in fact that might have been Nicky Katzberg, David Brabham and Luca coming in at the same time, and literally pulled out of the car by Dominic Schweiger to get into the car as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, that's Bassang out and Winkelhock in, isn't it? That's the 38 car, so they were in second place. We'll also see how the pit stops compare as everybody rushes around to change all 4 tyres. We know these guys are fast at Hexis, the number 3 car in then, and what can they do to turn it around? Düsseldorf handing over to Clivio Piccioni. Now there goes the number 38 Lamborghini, so there wasn't anyone particularly close. Remember, he was being caught a bit by the Ford, but the Ford has stayed out there. The Corvette now gets running.
And the thing is, can the Corvette get out before the Aston rejoins? No, side by side again. Another incident, well, not yet, but side by side, Aston Martin, Corvette, who's going to get into a narrowing gap? The Corvette was marginally ahead in the pit lane. The Aston had to concede, but really in this first turn, then up into turn 2 and 3, be prepared for an Aston banzai attack to try and get past the Corvette at the earliest possible opportunity.
He's done it. He's down the inside, but he's running wide on the exit. Piccioni has got past. Can he hold it? I think he might be able to.
He had to do that because Mike Hazelmans, if he'd been able to get a half a lap, he would have then found the Aston cruising but really struggling. There's the lead car in now.
The lead car in. So which of the Lamborghinis will be leading after this pit stop? That's going to be really interesting. And remember, Max Martin has stayed out there for the moment in his very fast Ford. He's still lapping a second a lap more than anybody else. And I tell you what, that Ford GT is really going to put itself in amongst the Lamborghinis when it comes to the pit stop, as long as they get a quick pit stop, and then it'll be down to new boy Bertrand Baguette. But in the meantime, the Corvette's come back. Hazelmans gets back down the inside. Lovely stuff from the veteran Corvette racer. He knew exactly how to judge the braking, and he's got in front of Piccioni.
Yeah, good pass down the inside into turn 9, puts himself ahead, lost the opportunity in the opening sequence when they went into turn 2 and 3. Piccioni very cleverly put the Aston down the inside, but Mike Hazelmans has come back, so the Corvette is ahead once again.
But which Lamborghini will be ahead? Because 37 has gone down the pit road. Number 38 is coming down, start-finish straight. Pit speed limit, of course, applying to the number 37 car until it's released. And here to change, it is the number 38 car. The early stop has certainly helped Marcus Winkelhock, who now takes the lead of the race in the car he shares with Marc Basseng. Look at this lot heading down, and there are cars joining from the pits as well. This is all going to be very interesting. The other Hexis cars got in front of the Corvette, and joining in the fun and games there, the Nissan as well. So it's tight as Piccioni hits the back of the Corvette, gives him a big old thump and trying to go through there. Jamie Campbell-Walters gained a place.
Yeah, easy move for Campbell-Walter. He just has to sit and watch. The contact came, the Aston was compromised. Smoke from the back of the Corvette. That is damage to the rear bodywork, which in turn, look at the rear smoke.
That looks like an oil leak, doesn't it?
Well, it might be an oil leak. I don't know whether there's an oil radiator at the back of the car, a transmission cooler, but let's have a look and see. Oh yeah, he gives him a right old nerf. And certainly get 4 points on your licence for that one if you're driving in the public roads.
And Jamie Campbell-Walters just sort of nips down the inside.
And he damaged the rear bodywork. I don't know whether that's the bodywork rubbing on the tyre or whether there might well be a cooler somewhere in that region. I think it's more bodywork than anything else.
Oh, and the Corvette guys can't believe it because it's been such a competitive run from that car once again. And Piccioni...
It's coming off the tyre to the bodywork clearly, and that's going to that tyre. He's got to go into the pits unless he can rub the bodywork away quicker than he rubs through the tyre. Yeah, so it's tyre smoke rather than oil smoke. Well, that's good news from the guys behind. They won't have too much problem. There is Marcus Winkelhock, and he's got this advantage, and now he's got clear air as well, which is what Marc Basseng had been looking for in the early stage of the race, but could never get past his teammate. Well, the pit stops have certainly sorted that out. It is the 38 car leading, the 37 Alinco Lamborghini in second, then the gap back to all the rest racing for third. But I want to see what happens when Max Martin, and of course they're not actually leading yet. Max Martin is still leading this race. He still hasn't made a pit stop, so we're still waiting for the Ford GT of Max Martin
to come into the pits, and there he is. We're waiting to see how long he stays out there.
The danger is he's not the quickest car on the racetrack. That happens to be the Winkelhock Lamborghini, which has got fresh rubber, so they will be bringing this car in now. There is Bertrand Baguette. He will be into the car driven by Marc Martin, but Martin has done such good work in the laps that he stayed out on. He's been able to run a second a lap quicker than the rest of the field, so he may well put himself into even closer contention to the two Lamborghinis. Remember, he ran them down prior to this round of pit stops.
Yeah, no, it could be a threat, but as you say, I think it's time they came in. I'm not sure he shouldn't have come in on this last lap.
Well, the last lap, the Lamborghini had the quicker lap, so he's in now. I mean, we saw Baguette ready to jump into the car. Whether they should have come in a lap earlier or come in this lap is a moot point. We'll see just how quickly this pit stop takes place and where the Ford GT rejoins, whether it's between the two Lamborghinis or whether has Martin done enough in the intervening period to get ahead of the lead Lamborghini. And well, we'll have to just wait and see how quick this pit stop goes.
What a great moment for Bertrand Baguette, who's making his race debut in GT1 World Championship. Indy 500 racer. He contested many of the IRL races last year. Oh, get the door shut, get him. Oh no, we've got a delay. Oh, the door won't shut. Would you believe it?
We've had a problem with the door on the Ford GTs in the past. That's cost 5 seconds.
Oh.
There, the two Lamborghinis are now on the pit straight. Had that not happened, clearly that Ford would have been between these two Lamborghinis, but now he's going to have to do all the work that Maxime Martin did, and in fact he's in danger of losing potentially third place as the Aston comes up, the Hexus Aston, and it sweeps past the Ford GT into turn one, and what a disaster for the Mark BDS 14.
Oh, that's such a shame. Yeah, he's lost it to Hohen Ardel, who's now taken over the number 4 Hexus Aston Martin. Good run though from Hohen Ardel. They'll be Hexus once again. Good pit stops, turning that car around. But Max Martin, what a great drive, great stint from him that was. Really enjoyed watching him.
So it's all now in the hands of the newcomer to GT1 World Championship, Bertrand. Oh, problem for the Corvette, and rear tire finally. Well, yeah. We know a body contact, and the bodywork has rubbed through the tyre more than the tyre rubbing the bodywork away. So Mike Hazeman's creeping back. He's at turn, I think that's turn 10. So he's pretty much round the lap, but still 2 more corners to go before he can even see the side of the pit lane.
Trying to stay out of everybody's way there, but is he actually going to make it back? I'm not sure. And there is your race leader. It is Marcus Winkelhock. He's got a 4-second lead over his own teammate, which is now Dominic Schwager, driving the number 37 car. And plenty of time still left in this race. They will be managing the temperatures. That's what they are so wary about. But they're both running in relatively clean air, so brakes and engine temperatures hopefully won't be as marginal now they're running like this. 26 minutes remain, and I think the racing, the hard racing, is going to be somewhat further behind these guys, because just look at the advantage they have as they cross the line. 1 and 2, they're separated by 4 seconds. The next nearest car, way back in the distance there, is the Hexus Aston Martin of Christian Hohen Ardel, then the Ford of Bertrand Baguette, the newcomer to the series, former single-seater racer, F1 tester, Renault 3.5 champion. Now he's got to get to grips with it. Jamie Campbell-Walter running well in 5th, and Jamie seems to like this track too. He went well here last year, and meanwhile the Darren Turner Aston there coming under some pressure from Peter Dumbreck.
Yeah, so the focus of the battle is now leaving the front of the race and is coming more to the midfield as we see this Nissan and this Aston Martin. Darren Turner behind the wheel after Stefan Mucke completed his run. A good run. Peter Dumbreck taking over from Richard Westbrook. So maybe now we'll watch and see whether a Nissan can lay it on the Aston as they go down to turn 6.
Just news also, John, that there's a drive-through penalty for car 3. That was the Hexus Aston Martin of Piccioni for colliding into the back of Mike Hazeman's Corvette.
Yes, that was it. That was an avoidable incident, and we're seeing now the stewarding at every FIA event being much more aware of incidents that occur that disadvantage a driver. Mike Hazeman, we don't know where he is, but he's in the pits at the minute, so whether he leaves the pits we don't know. But his race was spoiled by that contact, and therefore why should the driver responsible for the contact not receive some punishment himself?
What that will do is move these two up, because they're actually further back. They are following Piccioni in his Aston, so it will move them up to what will it be, 6th and 7th. Hazeman's climbers out of his Corvette. That's so disappointing, because that car was a real front runner in there. Nico Verdonk drove a good first stint. He was fighting hard, and it was looking good and clean until it just went wrong down into turn 2 and 3, and the drivers just having a discussion about it. But that's a great pity and they needed the points. Certainly Hazelmans has been fast at most circuits, but you've got to get the good results, and of course that'll drop him back on the grid. He'll be at the back of the grid for the championship race.
You lose so much time trying to get back into the pits with a flat tyre, and if you go too quickly then you'll do even more damage. But by the time you get back to the pits, is there any point in putting a fresh tyre on that left rear? You're not going to score points, so wait until, let's look again and see what happened. I mean, just Clivia Piccioni misjudged the pace of the Corvette and bumped into the back of it. It wasn't an intentional move, it wasn't a deliberate move. The consequence is he will suffer a penalty. The pace of Hazelmans into turn 3, maybe a little bit cautious on the entry, and Piccioni just simply misjudged it.
Yeah, so Piccioni's going to have the drive through. There's his teammate Steph Dusseldorf, a little shake of the head after he'd worked so hard and got so hot in the car, and it's all rather undone, I'm afraid, but one little tiny error, and that's the price you pay, and they're just going to have to live with that. Meanwhile, you've got the battle of the Brits here between Darren Turner in the Aston Martin and Peter Dumbreck right behind him. And Peter was very quick in qualifying this morning. Richard Westbrook in the car suffered a bit of understeer, but nonetheless, Dumbreck looks as though he might be able to line that Aston up.
Oh, I think so. I think Dumbreck is the quicker of the two cars. Again, it's just a matter, as we see the Aston come in for a drive-through penalty, it's a matter of Peter Dumbreck just finding the position, making the opportunity for himself, and getting down the inside of Darren Turner in the Aston Martin, and Peter Dumbreck clearly on a mission to do so.
So it's going to feel like an age here for Clivia Piccioni to head his way down the pit lane, and as he does so, everyone else is overtaking him out on the circuit. There go Turner and Dumbreck. They're chased by Engelbert, who has taken over from Michael Rossi, and the DKR Corvette still running in the top 10. They're running in 8th place, so that's good news. Let's go down here now from Mike Hazelmans.
Mike, what was looking like it was going to be a successful race for you, it is unfortunately over now. Tell us what's going on with the car.
Yeah, nothing. Piccioni, I think it was. He just outbraked him. Maybe was a little bit frustrated that I overtook him back. I don't know. I think he just made a mistake. And normally it doesn't matter if you hit it, but he hit me on the side, and then something came in the tire, and it was just moments before it's gonna blow. So yeah, that was a little bit of pity, because I think at least at the first 3-4 for tomorrow to have a good start was possible. That's racing.
Oh, a little move up the inside there, and that's Enrique Bernoldi gaining a place, getting past Bas Linders. Oh no, is he? Because Bas Linders retakes him back again.
Well, the problem going down the inside into turn 8 is that you commit yourself down the inside. You then have got a very acute angle, and if you can't make it, you overrun the corner, and the car that you've passed has got an open bit of racetrack on the racing line, and it's just a simple matter of just occupying that bit of racetrack and retaking the position.
Yeah, so that was neatly done. That's for 9th place. Just ahead of them is Dimitri Engelbert in the DKR Corvette, which Michael Rossi drove well in the first stint, and Engelbert now much more up to pace. He seemed to struggle in qualifying, but his race pace is looking good. As the leaders, reminding you, are still the two Lamborghinis of Winkelhock and Schwager. We're looking at the number 41 car of Bertrand Baguette. Now, he lost out at the pit stop because they had that problem closing the door. He's now got into a bit of a rhythm here, John, and I think, if anything, he is lapping a bit quicker, isn't he, than the Aston Martin ahead of him?
Well, in the last lap it was actually 9/10 of a second quicker, so there we can see the difference: 8/10, 4/10, 3/10. So now that Bertrand Baguette has got into the Ford GT in the race, you might call it race mode or race chip, the car will feel different to how he drove it during practice, during qualifying, and of course for the first time into a car like this, all the senses. The car has also had the benefit of being on track for the best part of 30 minutes with Maxime Martin. So, as I say, it's the feelings. You've got to readjust your brain, and suddenly the car that you thought was good in one place may not be so good.
Now, what's this coming into the pits? The number 7 Aston Martin. I wonder why that's happened. It's Thomas Enger, and must be some sort of problem, because you wouldn't expect a pit stop at this stage in the race. Can't see any visible damage, but something has clearly gone awry for number 7 Aston. Meanwhile, Bernoldi has got back past Bas Linders, and this time I think he might have held on to the place. Yep, Linders doesn't respond, not yet anyway. So Enrique Bernoldi has snatched the place past the Ford. He's up to 9th place. That drops Bas down to 10th. Piccioni, after his drive-through, is in 11th. And what about championship leaders Michael Crum and Lucas Law? Of course, Law is in the car now, but outside the top 10. He's down in 12th. The incident at the first corner really damaged their hopes. Their car is still running, but the number 23 Nissan doesn't look to be scoring any points, and it's not going to end up with a great grid position either for the championship race. But as we've seen, a lot can change during the course of the race. There you are back with Turner and Dumbreck. Still nothing to choose between them.
No, I mean, two bits. They know each other very well. They live in Banbury, they socialise, they do sporting activities together. So it's a real cat and mouse job between Dumbreck chasing the Aston Martin. Darren knows where to put the Aston. He knows that's the bit of the racetrack that Peter Dumbreck will be looking to use. And just good, clean racing from two good, clean professional drivers.
Here comes Bertrand Baguette then. This is for third place. Remember, you're looking back from the Hexus Aston Martin as Christian Hohenadel, race winner from the Saxon Ring. Very impressive drive that day from Hohenadel, who has adapted to these GT1 cars very effectively. Told us it took him a while, and here comes Baguette. Yeah, a lot of pressure on Baguette here. First time he's ever driven one of these cars, and he's got a potential podium finish. You're looking back from the Aston at him, and Baguette, so far, I'm impressed. He hasn't done anything, you know, sort of wayward. Still got a bit of time to go.
The big difficulty is that the Lamborghinis are 18 seconds down the road from the third place Aston Martin. Now, when we saw Maxime Martin in the Ford GT, he managed to get through. Now he's dived up the inside.
He's had a look
into turn 13.
He's
turn 15.
Into turn 15, the last corner. That was a late lunge up the inside, but Bertrand Baguette, well, I said he's sort of waiting for his moment, but he chose it, and that's always the best way. Just go for it as soon as you're in range, and he's done it. But the Aston trying to come back at him, but he can't do that through the kink.
No, that was a courageous, again, an unexpected move from Bertrand Baguette, typical of a single-seated racing driver. Opportunistic, sees the gap, tries to make it work, and there's a big problem for Nissan. Is that a fire extinguisher, I think, has gone off in the car.
That's Bernoldi out of the car. That's a great shame for Enrique Bernoldi. Just gone past Linders, if you remember, so whatever's gone wrong there, that Nissan is out.
Well, either the car caught fire, which I don't imagine, or suddenly the extinguisher has been jettisoned, and that's why he couldn't drive the car. It's full of fire extinguishers.
So the Ford has got up to third place. Bertrand Baguette, let's just see how he did that again from outside.
Yeah, I mean, typical slingshot move. Come out of a fast corner, sweep down the inside, compromise the car you're passing, take its pace away, and then you've got control. And the Aston really didn't get any advantage in the switchback. As we look back at the Nissan, we still aren't aware of the reason why that car came to a stop, other than, to me, it was the extinguisher appeared to be extinguishing something.
So Enrique Bernoldi is out. That brings Clivio Piccioni back into the top 10, despite his drive-through penalty earlier on. There you're looking at Lucas Lure, and it's brought him up one. He's up to 11th place, so it has helped him. The car's still running, it's just not been at its normal competitiveness. And this is what happened when Bernoldi just pulled off a moment ago. You're riding on board, and he just pulls off to the side of the track.
Well, there's a rumble of some description, and whether that's... He leaps out of the car, and is that smoke or something spilling in the car, whether it's oil that's smoking or whether there's no flame that we can see, but he was waving frantically at marshals to come and help him with some extinguishment.
So, looking at this battle, you've got Jamie Campbell-Walter now in the first of the Nissans in this race, the car he shares with David Brabham. So they are currently top Nissan, and they've got a chance maybe of gaining another place. They're looking at fourth. They're trying to get fourth place away from the Aston just ahead of them.
Well, certainly he's been carving into the advantage the Aston has. He's taken the best part of 1.7 seconds out over the last 3 laps. So Jamie Campbell-Walter doing a 39.7 against a 40.1 for the Aston ahead. Oh, but a bump over as Baguette comes out and really clumps the exit of turn 8 and didn't do the Ford an awful lot of good. And again, those two cars following, Campbell-Walter and Hullenal, will be hoping that's a sign of things to come.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be a hero at this point, Baguette, because there's really no chance of closing up to the 2 Lamborghinis. He's just got to settle in third and make sure he finishes there. Still got this battle for 6th between Darren Turner and Peter Dumbreck. Lights ablaze on Dumbreck's car, it's not going to make too much difference. Behind them is Engelbert in the Corvette, and he's doing well. He's staying with the pace here.
He's not only doing well, he's actually lapping at the pace, if not fact, in the last lap was quicker than the 2 cars ahead of him. So this is by far and away the best run we've seen from Engelbert in the Corvette. but in the 2 events that he's taken part in.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. GT3 racer in the past, and Renault Megane racer, but he's certainly doing a good job here. Look at Dumbreck's got as close as ever to the back of Darren Turner's Aston Martin, but I'm not sure there's anything he can do with it.
Well, the thunder of the Nissan going down the pit straight as opposed to the scream of the V12 Aston Martin. Peter Dumbreck hoping that he can force Darren Turner to make a little error coming through turn 2, but Darren just slows it down, makes sure his car's in the part of the racetrack that's going to be the important part, and then Peter Dumbreck knows he's always going to have to wait until the Aston starts to accelerate before he can then get on the throttle as well.
Both front-engine rear-wheel drive cars, of course, but the Nissan bigger, taller, more muscular kind of machinery, the Aston more svelte, and as you say, that V12, that turbo-like V12, just giving him the edge at the moment. Enrique Bernoldi's made it back to the Sumo Power pit and is trying to explain what's happened to the car. They all want to get their hands on it, of course, so they can fix it for tomorrow, so they'll have to wait until the end of the race before it's recovered. The Corvette's still behind these two of Dimitri Engelbert. Then there's a gap back to Bas Leinders. Bas is still running in 9th place, 10th place for Clivio Piccioni. They are removing a car there, and then behind them Lucas Lohr.
I think that might have been the Bernoldi Nissan. They wanted to get clear. And again, Darren Turner can just stretch a few feet between turns 10 and 11 and keep the Nissan at bay.
There are the 2 Lamborghinis. We haven't seen them for a while. That's because they're running away with this race currently. The gap between them is just under 3 seconds, but the gap between them and the 3rd placed Ford, there is the 3rd placed Ford, is 16. Oh, in fact, it's even more than that, isn't it?
It's 19 to the lead, but 16 to the 2nd place Ford.
Yeah, incredible. A really good margin. Let's get down to hear what happened to Enrique Bernoldi now.
Enrique, what was happening out there for you?
Well, the temperature is very, very hot outside, so I started to feel some smoke in the car, and then I had some flames, maybe some electrical part just burned, and as the fire was starting to go more while I was driving, I had to stop close to a fire marshal, so it's a shame.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I wonder if that's related to the high temperatures here. I mean, we've been talking about it a bit, but whether it is temperature related or just one of those things. Meanwhile, that 3rd place car just going through.
Well, the ambient temperature has been hovering around 36 Celsius.
So the number 41 Ford there, Bertrand Baguette, holding on to third place, and it's a fairly lonely third place because he's eased away from the others. We had sorry about the technical problem we had there. You lost us for a while, and that was because we suffered a major electricity failure in the building that we're in. So sorry we lost you there, but we are back on board. So Darren Turner still managing to fend off the Nissan of Peter Dumbreck. That's the race that's going on currently for 6th place, but the Corvette joining in the fun and games. This has been cat and mouse, as you said earlier on, John.
Yeah, and Gilbert is the one that really, I think, is most threatening. I think Darren Turner and Peter Dumbreck are frozen into their respective positions, 7th and 6th, but Gilbert, I think, maybe might fancy getting between these two cars or ahead of both of them if the opportunity should arise.
So it is still the two Lamborghinis leading the race, those of Marcus Winkelhock and Dominic Schweger. There is Jamie Campbell-Walter, and he has got ahead of Hohen Ardel. So that was a place gained by Jamie Campbell-Walter. He's been looking at doing that for a couple of laps. Let's see how he did it here. Again, it's down into turn 8. That's at the end of the back straight. And again, Hohen Ardel saw him coming, gave him room, hoped that he might make the cut back, but couldn't do it. It's a good, clean pass from Jamie Campbell-Walter down the inside, just gets the car. Again, the Aston saw the Nissan coming, pulled away from the corner, gave it to Jamie Campbell-Walter, and wasn't able to come back on the exit of turn 9. Now that was pretty generous from Hohen Ardel, but it was sensible too, because otherwise they would have both ended out of the race. So he was very conscious, very aware of just keeping the car in one piece. This is, after all, the qualifying race. If that had been the championship race, things might have been different. He might not have been quite so generous, but that's a sensible bit of piloting from Hohen Ardel. Race leader still is Marcus Winkelhock. He scored that pole position earlier on today. The cars have been all fast in qualifying, but the number 37 car in particular has had all sorts of problems this year. Does look as though they are going to be able to bring it home for a decent result this time. They have had some good results this year already, but not as many as their teammates. So this will hopefully boost their chances somewhat. They had that good 2nd place finish at the Sachsenring. A little bit out of luck at Silverstone, but they're on form here. And meanwhile, it does look good for Max Martin and Bertrand Baguette. Looks as though Baguette is going to get a podium on his debut. Yes, and you have to think that in reality, after that disappointing pit stop where the door didn't appear to close correctly, that spoiled the race for that 3rd place Ford GT. They're now 20 seconds behind the lead car, 16 seconds behind 2nd place. Nevertheless, I mean, the Lamborghinis here have dominated the qualifying race. And Lucas Luhr has had a really tough race with a car that's not been right after some contact earlier on, but it is in 9th place, and at the end of the day, that's going to put him on the 5th row of the grid for the championship race. So although it's been a tough afternoon for the series leaders, it actually hasn't worked out too badly, and they should still be able to deliver some points come tomorrow. Remember, in this qualifying race, it is only the top few cars, the top 6 cars that score points. There will be 8 points to the race winner, 6 points to second, on down to 6th place, which means that Darren Turner, if he can continue to fend off Peter Dumbreck, will still score a point. But the guys outside the top 6 won't score today. They will if they finish in that same position tomorrow. Well, it's amazing just how one circuit can switch on to one particular manufacturer, and today clearly the Lamborghinis have got an advantage. The only issues that they had were the very high temperatures at the start of the race, the concern that they didn't want to have to push their cars any harder than they needed to do until the opposition themselves had to drop back for similar reasons. Yeah, and final lap we're on now, so it's all looking good for an AlInckel.com 1-2 in the qualifying race. In theory, that would give them the front row lockout again tomorrow, but it won't, because the number 37 car will suffer a 5-place penalty on the grid for an extra engine use this season in the championship. But nonetheless, this has been a tremendous display by both sets of drivers in a car that clearly works well here. Indeed, and what's going to be very exciting is the prospect of Maxime Martin being on the front row alongside the lead car here, and we know how quickly that car goes. So the race victory in the qualifying event here at Navarra goes to Marcus Winkelhock with Marc Basseng in their Alinkel Lamborghini. 2nd place to their teammates Dominic Schweger and Nicky Pastorelli. An absolutely superb display by the team, and Marc Basseng congratulating each and every member of that team. But scoring a podium finish on his debut in the GT1 World Championship is young Frenchman Bertrand Baguette, fresh out of single-seaters into a Mark VDS Ford GT. There's his teammate who drove such a great stint earlier on. He finishes in 3rd. 4th goes to Jamie Campbell-Walter, sharing with David Brabham. 5th back to the Hexus Aston of Hohenadel and Piccini, and after fighting the whole latter part of the race with his good friend Peter Dumbreck, it is Darren Turner who finishes 6th for Aston Martin. 7th goes Dumbreck, 8th for Engelbert. Lovely result for Engelbert, he'll be well pleased with that. Lucas Law finishes 9th. Clivia Piccioni finishes in 10th place, and then coming through in 11th is Christopher Nygaard, the car shared with Vanina Ix, and despite a couple of extra pit stops there, at least they still earned themselves an 11th place finish, because we had several non-finishers. Bas Linders pulled off at the side of the start-finish straight a little bit a few laps ago. Benoldi had to stop. Enger failed to finish with a heat-related problem, we gather. Verdonk and Hazemans, of course, their car was hit up the back by Piccioni. That's caused their retirement, and we lost Antoine Leclerc quite some time ago. So, few non-finishers, maybe heat-related, some of those, but no such problems for the Lamborghinis that dominated.
No, and a clean race from both the Lamborghinis, in spite of getting at one point rather close indeed. Two teammates racing into turn 8. Good news is there was relatively, virtually no damage to any of the cars. Corvette got clipped on the left rear, but that I think was a fairly superficial piece of damage, and good to see clean race from the entire field.
Yeah, that's right, and some good racing, I must admit. I thought some of those moves that Max Martin made particularly were very good, and Baguette himself, when he went for the move up the inside of Hohenadel, that was a very clean, determined bit of overtaking, which is exactly what we want to see. Big thumbs up from Marcus Winkelhock, and you know, he really has taken to GT1, John, hasn't he, Marcus Winkelhock? You know, a very experienced DTM driver, had that little opportunity in Formula 1, but GTs seems to be his thing.
Yeah, I mean, he's a naturally quick guy who's raced in highly competitive race series. You know, racing in DTM sharpens up every aspect of your racing culinary skills.
Yeah, that one Grand Prix for Spiker was back in 2007 when he led amazingly at the Nürburgring. I mean, it was a bizarre race, but a lovely claim to fame. Just the one race, you lead it, and then you go off and do something else.
And particularly your home race too.
Yeah, that's right. It was a fairy tale, wasn't it? He raced in World Series by Renault. He raced in Formula 3 before that. Son of the late great Manfred, of course. Manfred Winkelhock, a great Grand Prix driver and indeed sports car driver himself. So victory on 1-2 for the two Alinkel teammates. We saw them chatting, if you remember, in the garage in the early part of the race when their two teammates were having quite a big old dice. I'd love to have listened in on that conversation. But there are the two Mark VDS guys, and they are well chuffed. Bertrand Baguette with his helmet still on, being congratulated by Max Martin, and they have made a tremendous combination. Baguette from Verviers in Belgium. He's Belgian rather than, I think I said he was French earlier, didn't I? And he actually is Belgian, so my apologies for calling Baguette Frenchman, and he is a Belgian driver, and he's come into GT1 and he's impressed everybody immediately.
And again, starting in the front row of the grid for the championship race tomorrow, that Ford alongside the winning Lamborghini. In terms of the drive from the start up to turn 1, 2 and 3, well, the Lamborghini ought to have the advantage. Nevertheless, the Ford handles sufficiently well, and Martin very, very strong.
So on the phone immediately, the guys, but making the most of this qualifying race. Dominant performance from Alinkel. And once again, our apologies if you were following that race and you lost us for a while there. We suffered a major power failure here, so we were unable to keep the commentary going for you. Hope it didn't spoil your enjoyment too much. And we've still got a championship race to look forward to here this weekend. See what these guys can deliver, and see if any of those that didn't do so well today can perhaps force their way through in the championship race. But it's been very, very warm. The temperature may be just, well, it's around the 35-degree mark still. These cars will be sitting there very, very hot indeed.
Well, the trouble is they come off the racetrack and the heat is so great. Obviously, when they were doing their slow down lap, they were slowing down as much as they possibly could do. But there is the car of Michael Krum. We saw, by Nolde, we saw him evacuate that car rather rapidly, and explaining that there looked to be an electrical fire. He said he saw flames in the car. Hopefully nothing more severe than just a small electrical fire.
Yes, that's right. Hopefully they can get that car back and sort it out as quickly as possible. So the guys just assembling. We'll hear from our podium finishers. Let's hear from the winners first of all, Marcus Winkelhock and Marc Bassin.
Congratulations, what a result for you, Mark.
Yeah, it's an incredible team effort from us. If you saw what we had last year and what we have this year,
1 and 2 in the qualifying race, amazing. The gap was great, huge, and so I'm really surprised. I'm really happy for the team, for all the work we did. Marcus did a phenomenal job, pit stop was good, I'm happy.
Marcus, a great bit of racing with your teammate there.
Yeah, it was just a great race. He did a good job in the beginning, me at the end. And yeah, as you said, it's a really good result, I think, for the whole team. P1 and 2, I think with that we can be really happy. And yeah, now I'm looking forward for tomorrow. The car was fantastic, the whole race actually, and yeah, looking forward for tomorrow.
Thank you.
So, all done as they hoped, and that was the moment that Marcus Winkelhock brought the car home, took the checker flag with a very comfortable advantage in the end of over 3 seconds to his teammate. But, of course, their teammates did finish in a fine second place, Dominic Schweger and Nicky Pastorelli, and I think, bearing in mind they've suffered some bad luck over the season, they'll be pretty satisfied with that. But they do have a 5-place penalty tomorrow. Let's go down to the pits. They're talking to Haley.
Dominic, a great result for the team. We saw you earlier chatting to Marcus before you went out. What were you discussing?
Well, we are just discussing about the pace and how we manage it to get some gap. I think the pace of the 2 cars were pretty similar today. And yeah, obviously not so happy that we pitted second, because that cost us the race. I think I did the quickest lap time, which is nice to have, but obviously it's more important to be on the top. Nice for the team to finish 1-2, but I think we could have done better.
Nicky, you'll be collecting some points, but unfortunately you will have a penalty and you'll lose 5 places on the grid tomorrow. But do you think you'll be able to make up those spaces?
Yeah, for sure. If we have the same speed as we had today, we should be able to do that. So I don't see any big problems for tomorrow.
Thank you, guys.
It's going to make the race interesting when they're fighting their way through from 7th place. It'll be, of course, on the grid. So make life interesting in the early laps, I would think.
Oh, yeah, I mean, once you're compromised by other cars ahead of you who you're naturally quicker than, but it's not being quicker than them, it's a matter of finding a way past them. And that will be a frustration for Dominic Schweiger and Nicky Pastorelli, because there will be some pretty quick cars there, not least of all the 4 GT of Martin and Baguette and Campbell Water and Brabham and the Nissan.
Let's get down to our 3rd place finishers, the Belgian drivers Max Martin and Bertrand Baguette.
Congratulations, Bertrand. What a result for you in your first GT1 World Race.
Yeah, it's my first race, so I'm very happy to finish 3rd. Maxime did a fantastic job. It was a lot easier when I got in the car, so he just had a little problem with the door at the pit stop, but except that the car was quick. The guys in the team did a fantastic job, so I'm very happy.
Do you think you would have made a little bit more time if you didn't have the issue with the door?
Yeah, but I think we were quite far from the Lamborghinis after the pit stop. Also, we had a problem with the door, but I think they did a better pit stop. But yeah, we did a great race, and 3rd here for tomorrow, it's very good. So I think we have a good car for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, that car did look rapid throughout the race, so there's no denying the fact that they could give the Lamborghinis a bit of a hard time. So well done to Max Martin and Bertrand Baguette. They seem to be a pretty impressive combination. So the Lamborghinis taking a 1-2 finish here at Navarra, with the Alincourt cars dominating of Winkelhock and Basseng ahead of Schweiger and Pastorelli. But the Martec Ford, or the Martec powered Ford, the Mart VDS car of Baguette and Martin, a fine 3rd. Jamie Campbell-Walter and David Brabham, top Nissan in this one, in 4th, ahead of the Aston Martin of Christian Hohenadel and Andrea Piccini, and then the young driver car of Darren Turner and Stefan Mucker. The Nissan next up of Richard Westbrook and Peter Dunbrek, they finished 7th. 8th place the Corvette, good result for Engelbert and Michael Rossi. 9th place for the Nissan of Michael Krum and Lucas Law, who had a pretty tough afternoon, to be honest. Then the Aston of Piccioni and Dusseldorf. They had a drive-through penalty, remember. Nygaard and Iggs finished in 11th place, and 12th place went to Bas Linders, despite not finishing. They actually were 5 laps down at the end because the car was pulled off to the side of the track. Quite a few non-finishers. Bernoldi and Katzberg in their Nissan. Enger and Muller failed to finish in the Aston Martin. The Corvette, which got damaged, of Hazemans and Verdonk. And Claret and Leclerc also failed to finish. So that's the situation at the end of the qualifying race, and some points have been scored, of course, by Basseng and Winkelhock, which should have just narrowly put them into the lead of the championship once again, but it will, of course, depend on what happens in the main race. There we are, let's just confirm that. Basseng and Winkelhock on 75 points, Krum and Law have dropped back to 70 points, but still only a 5-point gap. 63 points for Hohenadel and Piccini, very much in the hunt, ahead of Mucker and Turner. Then Dusseldorf, Piccioni and Enger and Muller, who are going to have a tough afternoon tomorrow because they're going to have to be starting at the back of the field. further down the order. Hazeman's, who could have scored well today, but ultimately, of course, failed to finish. Pastorelli and Schwager, they got in the points, and it gives them the chance to score more tomorrow. Dunbrack and Westbrook, though, well, they're having a bit of a tough time of it. They're not scoring the sort of points that they were hoping for and indeed expecting in the early stage of the season. Well, you can see the cloud just beginning to build up there a bit, John. There's no doubt that the weather conditions could change for tomorrow. Look at the team's championship. Hexis AMR on 127 points, but Alincourt only 7 points behind them. It's very close between those two outfits. JR Motorsports in third, just 2 ahead of Young Driver. Then there's a bit of a gap back to Sumo Power, Mark VDS, Swiss Racing and Belgian. So there we are. Yep, as I say, the weather conditions are possibly going to change. Let's take a look at the highlights here of that qualifying race then, and this was the start of the race, and straight away, as expected really, we did get some incident down into the first corner. The Lamborghini on the outside of the front row took the advantage, swept into the lead in the first corner, but then, John, there were various things going on behind.
Well, into turn 2 we saw contact somewhere along the line. Stefan Mucker was involved, and then in turn 3 it got slightly worse. 4 cars, there's the 4 GT being spun around, contact, and on the exit, and there was the Corvette of Michael Rossi, who started 15th and made his way up to 8th place on the opening lap, biggest beneficiary. So just on the exit, the 4 GT, and I think that was self-induced, but further back the Belgian Racing 4 GT did clearly get tagged, and then 4 cars end up on the outside of the track on the exit of turn 3.
Let's go and hear from another runner from that race, Andrea Piccini, who finished in 5th.
Andrea, great placing at 5th place, so it should be a good start for you tomorrow in contention for the championship this weekend.
I think it's good. Some points for the championship. The cars we are fighting with are quite far back, except the Lambo that is always in front. Actually, I think they are a little bit too fast from the beginning of the season, but the balance of the performance didn't hurt them so much. We will try to do our best tomorrow. I'm sure if there's no problem, they will win again because they have such a big gap to all the others. But we will try to fight for the podium and just close the gap as much as possible and open the gap with the other cars. So I think it's all right for us.
Thank you.
Patience required, but patience delivered by some of the teams today. 1 or 2 maybe made mistakes, but Hohenadel and Piccini, they got that 5th place, and it means that they've got a good starting position tomorrow, and it's all about scoring points as consistently as possible. Win when you can, when you've got a car on a track that suits, but score the points when it doesn't suit so well. So just looking across these dry plains here in northwestern Spain, reminding us a little bit of California, John, but let's take a look back at the full highlights of the race now.
To some extent this was all about a high plains drifter. Lots of that going on here this afternoon.
And the race start saw the Lamborghinis shooting away into the distance. Behind them it was going a little bit crazy. There was some contact with the Mark VDS Ford. That was the Belgian car though, spinning down towards the back of the pack. Then we saw the 2 leaders going at it pretty hard, didn't they?
Well, you've got to make your chances. You can't expect a drive through from the car that's leading the race, even though it's your teammate, but they gave each other just about enough working room. But this was the real race going on. Marcin Martin and the Aston Martin, and a great dive down the inside into turn 10 to take that position away, and a cheer from the Ford Mark VDS team.
Yeah, that was a lovely move. Another look down that inside move on the Corvette, squeezed through on the inside, got some great reaction from the crews as well, and then managed to make the move stick in the end.
Yeah, Verdon came back strongly, but again the Ford just in position enough to get the inside line into turn 8 and consolidate that pass. Then the round of pit stops, drag your co-driver out, whatever it takes, wheels off, and the battle of the pit lane, we saw this, the Corvette coming out with the Aston just literally trying to fight its way through.
Yep, and then Piccioni got past Mike Hazemans, but that wasn't the end of the story by any means, was it? Because Hazemans wasn't giving up, and the 2 of them were still racing hard. The 2 Lamborghinis had swapped in the pit stops. That was the moment that Piccioni hit the back of Hazemans.
Yeah, and he got a drive-through penalty for that particular incident, and of course it also led to the end of the Corvette race, the tyre rubbing, the bodywork. But again, a great move up the inside into turn 15 from Bernard Baguette, and well,
yeah, Bernaldi out. He was one of several retirements, wasn't he, towards the end of the race. Cars maybe getting a little too hot in these conditions, whatever. That was Jamie Campbell-Walter making a lunge up the inside to take what was fourth in the end, but no one had any answer to the sheer pace of the Lamborghinis. Marcus Winkelhock came through to take victory, as he had done with Marc Basseng at Zolder earlier on this year in a qualifying race. Can they do the double? That's the big question. They managed it in Belgium, and that's what they'll be aiming to do here at Navarra as well. It's been Lamborghini's day here, but it all might be different when we come back tomorrow. Hope you can join us then. From John and Ben, bye-bye for now.